So, Kal Kadosh, Erev Tov, good evening. First of all, Potchim B'chvod Achsanya. We wanted to thank our dear friends, Roman Morgan, V'ezrat Hashem, that they should have a lot of semachot in this house. V'ezrat Hashem should always have a lot of nachat and bracha, V'ezrat Hashem, in this house. So this is going to be the Chinuch class, shiur number 6. Tonight what we're going to speak about is self-awareness and criticism. What does that mean? That means, should we criticize our children? And if yes, how? If no, so how do we prevent ourselves from doing so? So why do we call it self-awareness? Because many times we don't actually realize how much we do criticize our children and how much of a negative effect it will have on them. So therefore, that's why we're trying to awaken our self-awareness in this. Rav Matisyahu Solomon Zatzal always used to say that every single human being wants their children to be big tzaddikim and tzaddikot. Right? You haven't seen one person yet that hasn't said that. They all say, yeah, we all want them to be tzaddikim, tzaddikot, and it's always l'shem shamayim also. But we have egos. And since we have an egos, many times what happens is that we want to look good. And therefore, what happens is that we don't realize that sometimes we're doing it not for them, but for ourselves. So if you remember, one of those methods was when we were speaking, I think it was 2 or 3 weeks ago, where we were trying to train the children to accept authority. And we basically told you that what you're supposed to do is you're going to ask them to do something where they will not listen to us. Meaning we already know that they're not going to listen to us. And the only reason why we're doing it is in order for them to learn authority. If you remember, we said what happens. You come and you ask them to do something. They're very, very busy. It could be in their Nintendo. It could be that they don't want to go to bed. It could be whatever it is that they're doing. They're very, very engrossed in something. And we said that we're not supposed to care. Because if you already know that you're doing it and that they're not going to listen to you, so therefore, why would it hurt you? But again, our ego gets involved and then we get all upset. How could they not listen to us? And what type of a chutzpah, what type of what's going on? And really, be'emet, it has to do with us. So really, if we have to internalize to ourselves that it has nothing to do with us, and therefore we are giving them a gift, so we shouldn't get angry. However, though, what message are they accepting? What message are they internalizing? So we're going to say something very, very interesting. In Avodat Midot, when we work upon ourselves, many times we work upon baby steps, correct? We want to internalize something. It takes small baby steps. Certain things, you could do a drastic change and it changes automatically. In a flash, in an instant, it will change everything. So what we're going to speak about tonight, basically, is going to be about this. So we'll take an example. Right? There was a very, very famous person. He was a top-notch doctor, world-class, famous, powerful, and he was so powerful that basically that they were having discussions that he's so irreplaceable. What would happen if right now something would happen to him? So imagine what it is. So even the non-Jewish world, they're trying to judge what would happen without this person. But what happens is that he's got a teenager, and to do with a teenager, he's a little child. Which means that the teenager comes and he does whatever he wants to this father. And even after coming and explaining to the father, but you have to exert authority and you have to show him that you're the boss and it's good for him, and therefore in the future he will be able to accept authority, he will be able to get a good job, he will be stable, he'll be emotionally stable, he'll have yirat shamayim, he'll have fear of God, and all the other pluses that we spoke about when we talked about authority. All of a sudden he just couldn't do it. Meaning, if you would come and put him on the phone and you're not going to tell him that it's his son, he could do all these things. But the second that he knows it's his own child, it doesn't work. And why is that? And the reason why is actually something very interesting, is because many times we don't even look at ourselves as the adults. We look at ourselves that we are children which are playing house. And therefore, since we don't have a very strong, we're going to say, position of ourselves, that's going to affect the children as well. So there was another case that happened, and I think this is going to try to change a little bit of our outlook. There was a father that he was having children grown up, and he went to the shiurim that we're practicing over here, that we're giving over. This is based upon Rav Yaakov Zan. And Rav Yaakov Zan, which is basically Spare the Child, that's the English book, or Al Techetu Bayeled, that's the Hebrew book. And what happens is he basically went and he said as follows. And he said that somebody comes to him and he says, wow, you're doing an incredible job with your child. So he looked at him and he said, why? He says, no, you're at the doctor's office and he's bouncing off the walls. And you've got a lot of patience. I see you have a lot of self-control. So he went and he told him, that's not self-control. So he says, what do you mean? Right? He's testing you, and you're calm, you have your posture, you're not losing it. What does that mean? So the father comes and he says as follows. He said something incredible. And he says like this. He says, it has nothing to do with self-control. But he said, imagine right now, would a person ever take an iron rod and smash it into the child's skull? So obviously nobody would do such a thing. Are they crazy? What, they're going to come and take something? But he says they wouldn't be capable of doing it. But he says criticism is exactly that. When we criticize our child, we are basically taking something and smashing it in their head. Right? That's what we're doing. We're mamash. Now, if we bring it in those words, now you start, what did you just say? But what did I just say already? I just said that you're not clean, or that you never help out, or that I'm only criticizing. What's the big deal? But really, man, that's the effect that it has. The only difference is that it's invisible. Why is it invisible? This father, he said, for him it's not self-control. The older children, he lost touch with them basically, that partly they went off the derech, they weren't on speaking terms. It was terrible. So for him, he was actually happy the fact that he has a child that he's jumping off the walls, but he's able to connect to. So for him, if he's going to criticize him, why would he ever even, that's not self-control. It's not that you have to control yourself. There's nothing to do with self-control whatsoever. So therefore, what we have to actually understand is that what's actually driving us, right? It's the awareness of damage. It's not really behemet self-control. There's a beautiful parable brought down. Damage control, exactly. There's a beautiful mashal brought down by Rabbi Akiva Tatz. Rabbi Akiva Tatz is also a rabbi, but also a medical doctor. And he went and he said as follows. In the beginning, they trained him how to take a stethoscope. I can't say it properly. Right? So he says, how am I going to take a stethoscope? So he says, very simple. You come, you put it to the heart, and you want to listen. So he says he still remembers the first time he comes, he puts it, they tell him, no, you hear anything? He says, I don't hear anything. Right? That's not a good sign, obviously. But he said, I don't hear anything. But he was at the beginning, it was the first time. He says, nowadays, when he puts it on, he sees everything. He says he sees the ventricles, he sees the blood flow, he sees everything like living color in front of his eyes. It's like it makes an image, which means that now he doesn't have to hear it anymore. He just sees everything come out to life. Why? Because he's been doing it for such a long time. He got trained, and now he sees the entire picture just by listening to what's going on. So he comes and he says, it's the exact same thing. When we pay attention to what's going on, right, and we are focusing, right, on what are you listening to, the child hears many different things than what we are trying even to convey to them. Meaning we're trying to give them a message, and we think that we're telling them A, B, C. And really, the child understands it's something completely different. And they don't realize that. I remember once happened with the Chazon Ish, that there was a child that he was in the Bet Knesset, and he went and he made a noise, and the father went and he got all angry, he started screaming at him and this and that. So then afterwards the Chazon Ish came and he called over the father. And he told him what just happened. So he went and he said, no, very simple. I was doing Chinuch. I just educated him. Right? He went and he said like this. He said, one thing you did teach him is that you're allowed to get angry, and when you're embarrassed by even if it's going to be your child, you're allowed to get angry. That you taught him you could get angry and you could scream. But he said the last thing that I think that you taught him is that he cannot make noise in the synagogue. Meaning you thought that, what am I teaching him? To keep quiet in the synagogue. So what am I going to do? I'm going to scream at him, and I'm going to, why? He's making noise and it's embarrassing me. But he said that's the last thing that you taught him. The first thing that you just taught him, and that's the main thing that you taught him is that when you feel embarrassed of a situation, you could scream and go crazy. That you did teach him, 100%. But the main thing that you wanted to teach him, you didn't teach him. Now, why is that? The same thing that we're mentioning here. Because many times with the children, we don't realize that we're trying to give over a message, and really, Be'emet, it's not the message that we're actually giving over, it's something completely different. So someone once called up, and he basically went and he said, listen, his child has a problem. He stopped using his left hand. Yeah, stopped using his left hand. So imagine, a person calls you up, says, okay, fine. So you want to find out what's going on. So they call up the rabbi and he says, okay, so let me try to find out what's going on. So he goes on and he realizes that the child also, the only time that he did want to use his hand was when he was supposed to go to sleep at 10:30 at night, but he said to his father, you know what, if you let me watch a movie on your phone, so I'll use my left hand. So, okay, fine. So there's something here. He didn't want to use the sheets or anything which was laundered by a non-Jew. Right? That means imagine, the non-Jew comes, they come in, whether it's in a hotel or in the house, and the maid or someone is using nothing, he doesn't want to touch them. So there's something very, very wrong. So they call over the rabbi. And the rabbi comes and he starts saying, okay, fine. Let's try to find out what is going on. What's happening exactly? So he basically went and he said that really Be'emet, they try to find different reasons why that's happening. So a lot of times they're going to take it, for example, like Lyme disease, right? Which there's a whole question as, does that exist or not? In American society, does it exist or not? But what happens is that people, because what they're doing is something negative, they want to attach it to something else. So there were two different cases, right? One case, right, that they came and they actually looked into this. And when they were looking into this, they realized that one of the children, he went and he damaged something worth $65,000 in the father's house on Shabbat to get him angry. So imagine the child, so now $65,000 to get the father angry. So he got his father angry, $65,000. But again, obviously they had a lot of money, but this is what he did. So if you're going to come now and just say, you know what, it's a certain disease, right? Or whatever it is that it's going to be, that's not 100% true. You could say that it's going to be Lyme disease, pandis, salmonella, drugs being put in the... It doesn't make sense. What are you trying to do? There was a story of a couple that basically the person, he was basically going crazy a little bit, the son. And they come and they call over the rabbi, and the rabbi comes and he says, okay, so I want to see what's going on now. They didn't tell the rabbi or the psychologist that basically what happened was that for already from ages 4 till 10, right, this boy used to run under his mother's bed because the father was always threatening to kill his mother. So now, if that's going on, what do you want to come up from the child? So obviously, if he's not going to be 100% normal, you're not going to call it a Lyme disease, you're going to call it something else. You know that what's happening is that there's negative things which are going to go onto the child, and therefore, it's going to be a problem. So again, there was another case I'll just bring down is to do with a girl, the teenage girl, that she wasn't acting appropriately. So the father comes and she starts coming home late, comes the first time, second time, and all of a sudden they're called, right, at 11:30 at night by the therapist. They're sitting with a couple and they said, okay, it's very urgent. So 11:30 at night, the rabbi has to go. And when he's there, basically he's sitting and he's saying, okay, fine, so what's going on? He says, no, the wife didn't like what the husband did. So he said, okay, what did he do? He broke her collarbone. Yeah, he sent her to the hospital. So now, if you're going to come and tell me now, so the father comes and he says, what I did was chinuch. Why is that chinuch? I'm educating my child. She has to understand that she's under my house, my roof, and therefore if this is the way that it has to go, and then that's it. So he went and he said, okay, how do you know that it works? So he said, very simple. You know, everything that you're teaching is very, very nice, and theories and everything, but it just doesn't work. And my father beat me up, and look how I turned out. So he said, so how did you turn out? He says, look, I'm successful, I make money and this and that. But success, right, does not always mean, right, not because of what you think that is success, does not always mean that what you think is correct. So he says that's not Torah, and that's not anything else. What does that mean? At the end, the person was in in one of these shiurim, crying his eyes out because obviously the child went too far because he thought that he was doing something correct, and really, it was very, very far from the truth. And therefore, what we have to actually understand is that to stop trying to associate it with other names, or because of desperation, we're going to call it another narrative, realize that it has to do with us. And therefore, if it's going to do with us, we just have to understand that really, we have to fix ourselves. Another story that happened was with a young man in Shidduchim. He went and he said, I don't allow anybody to come and give me a shidduch, right? Unless it first goes through my brother. What does that mean? He had a younger brother. The younger brother was a top-notch boy. So he said any girl that's first read to her, which means that they're going to come and they're going to offer it to the brother, he could go out because he feels that he's better with it than the brother. Now obviously he's already older, and the parents are freaking out. They don't know what's going on. So the rabbi comes and he asks and he says, 1 second, you know what? Do me a favor, right? On top of, where do you have the pictures in your house of the piano or whatever it is? You have a mantelpiece? He says, yeah, right over there, all the pictures. He says, can you explain to me who are in the pictures? So the mother looks and she starts saying, yeah, this one. And then she realizes the pictures are there for 8 years. And this older boy was never in any of the pictures. So she comes, so he asks her, where's your oldest son? So he says, well, this one, we went to one of the big Dolei Ador, one of the big rabbis, but he was away. And the other one was a wedding, and he was in the yeshiva, so he wasn't there either. And then, so he comes and he says, did you realize what you just did to your son? What you did is that you made him vanish. You made him as if that he's not important. So he internalizes in his brain, who's important? My younger brother. So for me to go out with a girl, I need that first has to go through my younger brother. And that ki'ilu, that I'm a little bit better, and therefore, that's what's going to happen. But really, be'emet, he doesn't actually understand what's going on, that everything actually just took off. So in order then to understand, so what are we supposed to be doing then? So what we have to understand is that we have to start changing our approach. I'll give another example, which I think is very, very important. How many times does it happen that we complain that our daughters are not helping out for Shabbat? So first of all, you have to have daughters old enough, right? But, yeah? Well, your daughter's already old enough, yeah?
Daughters.
Huh?
Or just daughters.
Or just daughters, yeah? So, that they're not complaining that they're not helping out for Shabbat. Should the girls help out for Shabbat? No, B'ezrat Hashem, daughter girls.
She do already.
Oh, kol hakavod. You don't do anything?
No.
Okay, Baruch Hashem, very good. He's a true Moroccan. Okay, fine. So what happens? The girls should do everything, correct or not?
Yes.
Do girls have to prepare for Shabbat or not?
Yes.
Yes, okay. He says yes. Anybody else?
A lot of men help a lot.
Huh?
A lot of the men help today.
Kol hakavod, you're speaking a personal thing. You see, he helps out.
It's his problem.
Okay, fine. Okay, fine. It's his problem. Okay, it's his problem.
Only
Fine.
trash
You only throw out the garbage.
because I'm scared she run away.
So why don't you take her down all the...
Teach me to trash the
to
trash.
throw the trash. Okay, very good. Kol hakavod. So at least he taught you one good thing. It's good, no?
Yeah.
Very good. Okay, fine. So now the question is like this. Do they really have to help out or not? So imagine right now, we're talking about the dream scenario. What is the dream scenario? The dream scenario is that you see all these things that in Jerusalem you have, right, penthouse, and all the Americans are going to this penthouse, right? This is where you own this penthouse. I don't know how many maids you have, and they're making all the food. And all of a sudden you come and you think to yourself and you say, 1 second. The mother comes and she says, you know what? 1 second. My daughter's already 16, 17, 18, whatever, 14. Doesn't matter the age. She's gonna have to get married one day. She's gonna have to know how to cook. So she thinks to herself and she says, you know what? Come, whatever the name is, whatever the daughter's name is, come with me. Let's do this. So she comes and says, I don't understand. What? The maid didn't do her job? Like, what are you doing? Goes, no.
Why do you need my help?
Why do you need my help? She says, no. I'm doing this for you. I want you to learn, so B'ezrat Hashem, when you're going to get married, you're going to be able to do this. So if that was the scenario, then you're right, 100%. So imagine how the daughter is going to come and she's going to want to do this. However, though, what happens right now if it comes out the other way around? What does that mean, the other way around? Right? The other way around means that really, be'emet, She doesn't want to help, right? But you come and you say to her, listen, you should know that basically I'm overworked, underpaid. I've got 13 children under the age of 5, right? I don't have the strength. So you better do it or else. Do you think that this girl now wants to help out for Shabbat? No. And what's going to happen afterwards, right? She'll never want to help out because anything that she was forced into, right? Obviously, it's going to have a negative effect on her. So she does not want to do that. So what we have to try to remember is always, what is chinuch? Remember, chinuch is always going to be that I'm doing an action right now that will have a long-term effect in the future, which means that even if right now she's under my jurisdiction, she's going to do it, but in 20 years from now, when she's not in my jurisdiction, she's still doing it. That's called chinuch. Chinuch is always going to be for the long term. The short term, I could do whatever I want, and usually they'll listen. But we're always talking about the long term. What's going to happen in the long term, not in the short term. So according to this, right, now we're going to come and say something incredible. Look how many problems we have in chinuch. We come...
I have a question.
Yes.
In all this...
Yeah, question is as follows. They asked Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, if we make so many mistakes in chinuch, are we going to be held accountable? Imagine right now we go to Olam HaEmet. Yeah, after 120 years. Are they going to come and tell us, look how many mistakes we did with our children?
If there were honest mistakes and you were doing the best you could with the elements you had, you're not going to be you're not going to be negatively accountable.
Okay, so you want to say that no? Why? Because at the end of the day, so I'm going to ask you a question. Are you obligated to come to a chinuch shiur?
Until 13, you're good. Until
Huh?
I think this is a gift. But I
think until the bar mitzvah and bat mitzvah,
The what?
he count on you. Like
No, 100% it counts on you. But the question is, are you going to be punished? What did you do? Because you came and you destroyed them.
Of course, you get punished.
Okay. So he says yes. He says that if it's an honest mistake, no.
I think that when you learn Torah in general,
Right.
when you study Torah, that translates into chinuch.
Okay, 100%. 100%. So listen carefully.
Chinuch class, mamash, that's a gift.
Okay, very good. So listen, he broke it up like this, and he said like this. He said, why is it so important? He says like this. There's two categories. One category where we're not going to be held accountable, and another one which we will be held accountable. The one that we're not going to be held accountable is, for example, to come actively to a shiur. So let's say to come here to a shiur, maybe you're not going to be held accountable. Why? Okay, so maybe you didn't know or whatever it is, and you just didn't come. That's fine. But what happens if you need help? You see it's not working. So if you see that it's not working, now you have the obligation to get some help. So that you will be held accountable. Because that's like a person that, for example, if he feels healthy, does he have to go to a doctor? So nowadays it's true. There's doctors, which is called, I forgot what it's called now. It's preventive medicine. Preventive medicine and all these things. Okay, do you need to go? It's good, it's healthy. But do you really need to go? No. If you're not sick, you're not sick. But if a person already realizes that there's a problem, he's obligated to go. So, 100%. But there's something a little bit deeper. And listen to this. There was a beautiful parable given by Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach that he says as follows. He says, imagine right now you're learning how to drive a truck. Yeah, so imagine you're going to go in a truck, right? We just had a lot of problems with trucks, right? Recently, they all come from California. So what happens? He's shown the keys, right? He's got the ignition, the steering wheel, the gas pedal, everything. He practices driving, everything perfect. But he doesn't learn how to use the brakes. And what happens? He gets into the car and he starts driving. And what does he do? He mows down a guy. Yeah? So now the question is, are you going to tell me that the guy's not a murderer? Because they never taught him how to use the brakes? He's not a murderer? He never learned, he is a murderer. For sure he's a murderer. So therefore he comes and he says, so for that, we're going to be held accountable. Why? We have to learn how to use the brakes. The brakes are our mouths. Now, how do we see that? Says the Gaon of Vilna something incredible. Right? And listen to these words, because these words are powerful. The Gaon of Vilna says, every statement that comes out of a person's mouth without forethought, which means we do not think what we are saying, even if it happens to be correct, it's an expression of our midot ra'ot. It's not really correct. Why? Because it's impossible to say the right thing without a filter. You need a filter, right? Which means that, for example, you're going to first think to yourself, should I ask her to help me out for Shabbat now? Should I comment on the way that they're davening, that they're praying? Should I comment on the way that they're dressed or not? If it does not pass through the filter, it's not healthy speech. And therefore, says Rosh Hashanah Orbach, it takes no effort to become a destructive person. Meaning we could be a person that are mamash 100% destructive. Why? We didn't realize. Because we just spit it out and we didn't realize that we just destroyed them.
Are you recording it?
Yeah. According to this, right, we come and we say something incredible. Do you know that in psychology, they were looking, right, and they were trying to find out about abuse in a child. And they went and they said that when they were undergoing professional evaluation, they cannot distinguish whether the child was physically beaten or constantly criticized. That's very scary because that means you have a child that right now he's going to psychiatrists, psychologists, they have problems, but they will not be able to discern, to differentiate, was it because it was a physical abuse or just because we were just criticizing them the entire time and we were just putting them down the entire time? You cannot know. Now he says the reality, even though it's a sad reality, is the criticism is even worse. Now why? And he explains it's worse. Now why? And he says something incredible. And he says like this. He says, when a parent comes, remember that usually if somebody comes and he attacks you, Shalom, what do? You put a natural defense. For a parent, you don't have that natural defense because it's your parent, right? There was a famous story of a person that came and, Bar Minan, they went and they killed their own children. But why? A child will never think that he has to protect himself from his parent. So they don't put up that barrier, that shield to protect themselves. So they have nothing what to do. So because of that, they went and they did an experiment. Listen to this. I think this is, if we do this, this will change, I think, all of our lives. They went and they were working for a program from the Ezra Mitzion. And what they did is that they took 1,000 families, right? And they took tape recorders and a timer. And what did they do? From 7 to 8 in the morning Israeli time, let's say it's almost the same time here, let's say 7 to 8 o'clock. That's the time when you're getting ready for school and everything. That's when the tension is. That's when, you're always late and the carpool and the this and the that. They come and it automatically turns on the recording. And that's going to happen from Sunday or whatever, Monday, when, here would be, let's say Monday to Friday, there was Sunday to Friday or whatever, every single day for 2-3 months. And then what they do is after 2-3 months, they come and they say, okay, fine, let's collect all the data. They put all the data and they come and they say, okay, fine. So, now we have to go over it. So they come and they say, okay, let's hear the people come and listen to themselves. They say that at the beginning, 10 phone calls came in, 20, 30, after 100, they stopped. They unplugged the phone. They said, why? They said because the majority, when I say majority, we're talking about like 90-something% of the people did not believe how they talked to their children or their spouses. Meaning, what they were, the conversations that they had between each other. Now again, it wasn't that they were trying to spy on them. They were just trying to show how many times do we actually say things, and you would ask them, they say, it's impossible. Okay, put it on. This is not you. Nowadays they're going to tell you it's AI, it's all the thing. No, but is it not you? They're going to say, well, but it's impossible. They could have sworn that I've never done such a thing. Think about it. It doesn't make sense. You understood the experiment. A good experiment, no?
Who reviewed it? The person, the household?
Basically the household, meaning the parents, with the rabbi that they were conducting the studies, right? They went through the entire thing to actually conduct the studies, to see what was going on, right? So now imagine what that is, that you're thinking to yourself, you're saying, Ribono Shalom, do I actually speak like that? Whether it's going to be, do I speak like that to my spouse? Do I speak like that to my children? Now if the answer is yes, do I realize that? And again, that's where we're going to.
What's the alternative though? Let's
Of
say
what?
you do the reason why we
So now there's the homework. Okay, so now there's the homework. So very good. She asked it right away. What is the homework? Listen to this homework. 40 days, we're going to take out a calendar and we're going to make an attempt not to use a single negative word towards any of our children. 40 days. Yeah, 40-day trial. Everyone heard of that? 40 days.
1 hour, I'm dead already.
Very good. So the truth is, the rabbi came and he said it's like a tani dibur. But by the way, you should know, it's like a speech, but you should know, it's not actually that funny because the rabbi himself came and he said that after 2 days, he went in the car and he got upset that one of his daughters was not answering the phone. They didn't know where it was.
Yeah,
and then he went and he said, I lost my own contest.
Yeah.
What does that mean? We're all human beings. Don't think that we're perfect. But, right, what we have to do though is we have to be proactive. Now, why proactive? There's a beautiful Gemara. The Gemara says in Masechet Berachot, a person has to get the Yetzer Tov angry against the Yetzer Ra. Now, how does that work? So he says like this, imagine right now, I want to resist a negative behavior. So what am I going to do? I'm just going to hold back. What's going to happen? It's going to be a boomerang. You know what a boomerang is? Imagine right now I want to eat this cake. I don't know who did it, but it's incredible, right? That's what it looks. So what happens is that I'm going to hold myself back. Finally, what's going to happen? I'm going to go for it. But when I'm going to jump for it, I'm going to go...
I'm going to blow up.
I'm going to go 3 places. I'm not going to come for one. So I'm just going to go all out. Why? Huh? Take it to go. Okay, very good. So why? Because it's like a spring. What's a spring? You remember we spoke about the spring last time? The more that I'm going to put pressure on the spring, it's a jack in the box. Boom. It's just going to fly out. So the same thing. So he says, so what am I supposed to do? What I'm supposed to do is that what I'm supposed to beat the challenge to the finish line. Meaning, I already know that the challenge is there. So I have to beat it. How do I do that? Go to the opposite direction before the trigger hits. So therefore, you're not going to naturally react in a negative way. So what do? 40 days, we're going to do our best to avoid any type of criticism. 40 days. They said 40 days because that's the 40 days of, Matan Torah, changing our midot. They said that's how a child is formed in 40 days. So 40 days, a mikveh, 40 seah, everything's 40. So when we're 40 days, we're going to come and we're going to do this. We're going to actually change everything that's going on. So that's the way it is. Now, if you're going to come and you're going to tell me, does it work? This is something incredible because obviously it should work. But I'll give you something incredible. Listen to this. There was a bachur that he was already a 30-year-old man, divorced. Okay, this guy at the age of 28 already finished all of Shas, right? Meaning he finished a lot. He was a genius. So what happened is that when he was having a lot of problems, and he was almost going to commit suicide. Basically, they went, they saved him, they brought him back, and they went and they told him, but how do you feel? You accomplished so much. People would dream of accomplishing what you accomplish. So how does it work? So he went and he told them, I don't feel anything in my entire life. He says, what does that mean? He says, I'm going to introduce you to my mother. Okay, right? It doesn't sound good, but okay. I'm going to introduce you to my mother. He says, okay. He says, my mother was obsessively compulsive about cleanliness. Every Pesach, each child was assigned a 2-hour job. 2-hour job by Pesach. No, before Pesach, cleaning up the house, 2 hours. He says, I didn't have 2 hours to do it. Now, I don't have 2 hours left of my day. So I had no choice. So what did I do? I woke up an hour earlier, and I was like an athlete. I went and I started cleaning, whether it's all the windows of the house or everything of the house. I went and I did a 2-hour job in 1 hour. Finally, my mother comes down, and I say, Ima, look, come down, look, I want to show you this. You know what she tells him? She says, you're a waste of time. Your learning is nothing. Nothing that you do is worth anything. It'll never be it will be clean the way that I want it. I'm not even going to look at it, because I'm sure you didn't do a good job. That's it. What she just did now is that if you criticize someone enough, you destroy something so deeply inside of them that even the greatest accomplishments in the world will not register in their self-image. They will feel nothing. It won't help. So you have a person that he's done everything. It's worthless because his parents came and they diminished him. They made him worth nothing. So therefore, what do you want? So I think it's actually incredible. There's a lot more of the stories, even though I'm going to give you now a lot of the practical advices. right? And I'm going to actually stop it over here. And I purposely is doing this because I think that it's very, very important, the practical, even more than anything else. So, yes. Yeah, for sure.
I hear not to criticize, but let's say if a kid is doing something wrong.
So we're gonna say exactly. That's exactly what we
You're
want.
telling them you're doing
100%. So let's see.
Good job.
So number one, right? What you have to do is we have to commit to a period of zero criticism. You remember that's step number one. So by doing so, we said we're going to choose a 40-day period, right? Which we're not going to use any negative language or criticism. Okay. Now this tani dibur, right? This purpose of our speech is very important because it's going to give a more positive environment for our children. Now, remember, use the calendar, and every single time we're going to actually do this. So, for example, I'll give you an example, right? You choose the calendar, you come, you sit down with your wife, your spouse, you tell them, listen, this is what we're doing. Each day, just reflect on it. If you slip up, no problem, write it down. But what do you do afterwards? You come and you make sure that you commit to the next day. At the end of the period, you're going to review the progress, and then again, discuss, how did it change? Now, I'll give you the example in this one, right? So instead right now, the child comes and they spill milk. Instead of calling him clumsy and I don't know what, and another 100, huh?
Malo.
Ahmad, I don't know what you want to call him, right? Whatever you want to call him exactly. What do? Instead of saying you're so careless, right? You help him out and you say, let's be more careful next time. You didn't criticize them. You helped them out and you gave them encouraging words that next time, let's be more careful. It's not you. But instead of saying you should be more careful, let's be more careful next time, right? Or for example, if you slip and you criticize, again, you're going to write it down. The number two, actively seek opportunities for positive reinforcement, which means purposely look for things to speak about positive. Every single, you don't know, this is, if you remember, we spoke about this once in a Musar Shiur, to do with 100 things a day that, to thank Hashem for, right? And all of a sudden people start opening up their eyes and start thinking, you know what, Bemet, it's true, how many things there are to thank Hashem, right? This morning I woke up, it's already a Modani, but then I actually arrived on time to Shachrit, it's Shechianu, but I actually did it, so I have to thank Hashem. Then what happened, and you continue going. There's so many things to thank Hashem for. It's something incredible. So what happens? When we come to ourselves and we start looking at the positive, every single day, conscious effort to come and acknowledge something positive, no matter what it is, how small. Now, why are we doing that? Because now we're doing both. We're not only just doing the sur mera, going away from the bad of criticizing, we're actually looking for the positive of aseh tov. Do the positive action of doing that. Now again, write it down. Now, why are you going to write this down exactly? He says, because every day you should write down at least one compliment or positive action you noticed. Share these observations with your child regularly, either verbally or writing it, and then you review it, and you could even say it over. You tell them that. So for example, you're going to say, okay, she helped her brother with the homework, or he put the shoes away without being told, whatever it is. At the end of the week, share the accomplishments. At the Shabbat table, say, oh wow, look how many good things happened this week. By the way, you should know, if you remember once, we actually brought this down from Rav Zilberstein, about always speaking positive on the table, right, on the Shabbat table, positive things. You don't know what it is when you make a child feel that they become a millionaire. Why? Because all you have to do is just, you come, you give them a compliment, you give them something incredible, you built them, you did everything. Number three is replace criticism with constructive guidance. What does that mean? You have to frame the feedback in a way that you're guiding, you're not shaming. Meaning you could do the exact same thing, but just how are you saying it? So instead of saying it in a way that you're going to embarrass them or you're going to shame them, you're giving them a constructive feedback which is going to help them. So here it says, for example, before addressing the child's behavior, you pause and you think, what do I do to get the desired outcome? I want to get to here. By me coming and saying, you're acting silly, you're this or that, am I going to get there or not? So obviously the answer usually is going to be no, right? So therefore, let me try to frame it differently. Let me try to think differently. So again, let's try putting the toys away together instead of you never clean up, right? Or avoid generalizations and focus just on the solutions instead of the blame, right? Again, because we could always blame, but are we going to gain anything from blaming? No. So what's the solution? Let's get to the solution. It doesn't matter how it happened. Now it's a mess. How do we fix it? You're right, the guests came over, they made a huge mess. So now we could come and say it's his fault, it's other fault. You know what? Fine, but we have to clean up. How do we do it together instead of doing that? Okay. Here he brings down that an example is instead of you never listen, I noticed the trash wasn't taken out. Again, you didn't tell them you didn't take out the trash. Yeah, this is
That's
for you.
the dad job.
Exactly. Okay. So I noticed that it wasn't done. That's all you have to say. You don't have to. You didn't. I noticed that it wasn't done. That's all you have to do. It's a reminder, right? That's all that it is. Okay. The number 4, self-control and thoughtful communication, which means again, you're demonstrating restraint in your speech, and they learn, right, to do the same thing. Which means when they see that you feel frustrated, and all of a sudden you start counting to 10, right? You start calming yourself down. Many times they realize that. And many times they're testing you. You remember we said that one of the main things is that they want, the child wants to come and say, I got my daddy angry. I got my mommy angry. Right? That wasn't, because they couldn't win. So if they can't win, I did win. You know what I won? I got them jumping up and down. They're just like me. We're the same. Right? They're a child, I'm a child. The same thing. So therefore, never lose your posture. You have to just control yourself. So again, obviously when you feel frustrated, you have to take a deep breath, count to 10, you continue. Encourage individuality and self-worth. Every child is different. There was an incredible story, right? And there's going to be 2 or 3 more, but then I'll just tell you the story now, something incredible, right? There was a story of a guy that basically, this is Rav Yechiel Yaakov's, what happened was that he was called to a kibbutz because 2 boys went off the derech, and they called him that they wanted to come back. Now, he was basically prohibited to go to this kibbutz. This kibbutz was called En Shomer. Okay, it was in the north of Israel, and he was prohibited to go into this kibbutz because of, obviously, he would bring them back, and he was a professional, and he knows how to get them back. So what did he do? He used to park his car north of the kibbutz, go walking down through the forest, and he used to go dressed as a farmer. Okay, that's how he used to get in. What happened is that he's supposed to meet these 2 bachurim, and something incredible happens is that when he gets there, right, he just realizes, 1 second, I forgot to pray mincha. They changed the seder, and now he doesn't have, so what's he going to do? He doesn't have to do netilat yadayim, he doesn't have nothing. What's he going to do? So he's in the middle of a forest, he goes to the tree, right, and he just starts praying mincha. Closes his eyes and he starts praying mincha. Within no time he hears that there's a whole bunch of group of 14-year-olds that they're coming, and they start speaking in Hebrew, right? What's this guy doing over here? He's looking at a tree, and he's like, like he's speaking to a tree, like, what's going on? So finally, one of the boys that he had a little bit of a thing that, again, remember, we're talking about in Israel, right? And Eretz Yisrael, they say he's probably praying to God. So I said, wow, he's praying to God. If I touch him, does he get like electrocuted? So lo and behold, they come and they start touching him. So he's like, Ribono Shel Olam, he doesn't know what to do. Now, he wasn't afraid of them, right? Because of afraid. He's a giant. He's a 6 foot, thing, broad. He wasn't afraid of them of that. But he just didn't want to start getting into conversation with them. So all of a sudden he hears a scream. And he's in the middle of Amidah. He turns around and there's a guy that he said he looked that he came from the jungle. Right? He says if it wasn't for the fact that he didn't have a tail, he would have thought for sure he was an animal. That's for sure. He said he had 2 locks of hair he was shaved, 2 locks. He says, obviously by being a Kiruv rabbi, he knows every single type of hairstyle that you could look in the book. He said this guy looked like some type of a Tarzan that came from I don't know where. Tattoos all over the place. The guy comes and he said something in a poetic Hebrew that sounded from Yamim Noraim about like how could you stop someone from praying to your God? And then he went down to their level of the gutter and he just cursed them out, beat them up and got them all out of there. And now he's just watching like this, like shocked, like what's going on? And the guy comes and he tells him, don't worry about it. You continue praying, I'm going to watch you. Now the guy, the rabbi is a little bit in shock. And he finishes, right? And he's going to turn around. He could hardly even concentrate anymore. He's just mumbling the words to finish the Amidah. He turns around, and now he's got a dilemma. What's the dilemma? First of all, he has to get these 2 boys, and he's almost out of time. Number 2, they had a rule that they couldn't focus anymore on trying to bring these people going back to do teshuvah, but he had a big Yetzer Hara. He collects people. He says, this is my biggest prize. I have to get this guy to do teshuvah. But he says, but technically I don't have the time and it's a little bit problematic. So finally he comes and he tells them, okay, fine, right? He goes, you should know, you broke my entire streak. He says, what do you mean? He says, I always thought that there was nobody here that would understand anything to do with prayer and everything. But now that I see that you were actually even able to come and stop other boys bothering me to pray, I come from this fanatic area with all the black hats and all these things. I would have never believed it. Now that I see that, it's incredible. He says, what? That's what astonishes you? He says, you know who my Rosh Shiva was? You know how I learned? And he comes and he gives him a whole pilpul on the Zman of Tfilah Mincha from a Gemara. He said it was so incredible. He came and he wrote it down afterwards. When after the encounter, he went and wrote down the Devar Torah. So he comes and he tells him, okay, fine. He says, do you pray? He says, do you think that I look like a guy that I'm going to pray? He says, how many years are you here? He says, for 13 years. So he said, are you going to tell me in 13 years you never had the motion, you never wanted to come and to pray? You never wanted to say a Tehillim, you never wanted to do anything? And he went and he said, no. He says, for me, it's something out of there. You go, what are you talking about? He says, I used to live in Bnei Brak, and there was a shtibel called Iskowitz or something like that. He says, in that shtibel, he says, you know what prayer is? He says, they come at whatever time. You got one guy grabbing the sidur out of your hand, the other guy coming and starting to read the bulletin boards, the other one's coming, they're all talking, he said, that's called prayer? So for sure, what are you talking about? So he went and he says, you're 100% correct, but you're out of proportion. He says, what are you talking about? He says, very, very simple. He says, obviously, right, a person that prays, even if he's going to pray like that, is better than somebody that doesn't pray at all. So therefore, why wouldn't you pray? And the guy just didn't want to give in, and he keeps on going. So he says, but you don't understand, but right, your Rosh Shiva and everything, you obviously know that his prayer, but you know that your prayer is worth more than his. He says, what? Are you crazy? He says, what does that mean? You know what my Rosh Shiva was? You know what his prayer is? He says, you should know that a person here in En Shomer that is going to pray Mincha has a much greater reward than even your Shiva praying a Mincha. So the boy went, there was a boy, he was probably a 30-year-old, he comes and he says, you should know what you're saying makes sense, but emotionally, I don't want to do it. What does that mean? Emotionally, this boy got used to a custom that he hated religion. Why did he hate religion? Because basically what happened was that he feels that it's negative. He feels religion is pressure. Religion is something bad. He doesn't want it. So why in the world is he going to do something like that? It just doesn't make sense. So what happens? So he comes and he says to himself, you know what happens? He says, I don't want this anymore. So what am I going to do? I step out. And therefore I come and I say, I do not want this. So what happens? So he comes and he says, the way to understand that is to train every single child that they're priceless. Because basically, to make a long story short, if you're going to understand that every single human being is on a competition, and each one is priceless, each one is precious, so then now it's something completely different. So don't compare. So he says, number one, encourage individuality and self-worth. What does that mean? Show every single person that they're worth something. Every child is worth something. They're different. You can't have two children which are the same, right? And therefore, that's how you're regularly going to tell them that they're unique, they're valuable, nobody could, and it doesn't, never compare them to their siblings or their friends or their peers, right? Never do that. So here it actually brings down that the way to do this, he says, you tell your daughter, I love how creative you are with your art projects. And your son, you say your curiosity about how things work is special. Never compare them to the siblings. Because if you're going to say, but he does this or she does that, we just failed. Okay? Number 6, monitor and reflect on family dynamics, which means record the things and pay attention and always try to review them to try to make them better. So again, obviously, you try to record different things. That's what we spoke about the test. Again, you're always going to educate through positive religious and cultural experience. Always highlight the joy in religion, not the negative. Meaning Kiddush should not be a time that you're screaming at your child. Because if it's going to be that you're screaming at your child, they don't like Kiddush. It should be a time that it's fun. It's a time that's enjoyable. When Shabbat should come, Shabbat should be an enjoyable time. They want to come on the Shulchan Shabbat, the table of Shabbat, they're enjoying. They're singing, they're laughing, they're talking. If it's going to be that there's always tense and it's always things and it's always going to be an argument and a fight, so then that's not the Shabbat then. That's not what we want. And that should be like that for everything. Tefillah, that should be for anything that you're doing. Why? Because you're not going to, if you're going to force them and it's going to be against their will, we don't want that. Right? Certain times you do have to do it, that we spoke about it once if you remember. Certain times that we do have to force them to do something, but then immediately afterwards, you have to bring it up in their eyes. Right? And you have to show how precious it is what they're doing. The last one is, always seek guidance when facing challenges. What does that mean? Again, obviously, when we're going to be talking about is that whenever you have a question, always ask. Why? Because you're going to have workshops, you're going to have different ideas that work. You don't know how many times we just say we went and we did our homework. And we went and we said, when you're going to come and you're going to tell your child, did you actually think they were going to listen or not? I'm telling you, it works wonders, miracles. You could have a kid that you think that they'll never listen to what you're going to do. And all of a sudden they come and they listen and they accept authority. And they do that and you continue doing that over and over again. All of a sudden it changes the world. So I think, again, obviously with all these different tips, hopefully we'll be able to, continue, but Bezrat Hashem will continue next time also.